It's cooking! So wow.
Hey everybody, this is episode number 17, and today I'm going to be making a roast chicken, green beans, Yorkshire pudding, and gravy to go with that. So I'm going to go over the sides first, because my hands are going to get dirty with the chicken. So starting off with the green beans, have all the ingredients in here, kind of grouping everything together to keep all the ingredients together as well. So here, I bought the green beans whole. I cut them into maybe 2-3 inch pieces. You cut the ends off of both sides because those are really chewy, you can't really eat them. And I'm gonna end up blanching these. So what blanching is that you boil it and then you shock it into ice water. That way it stays nice and crispy, but it's still cooked. Then over here I have pine nuts that I'm gonna toast and then toss with that in some olive oil. And then I have some lemon zest I'm gonna do as well, and then some dried parsley. You can use fresh parsley too if you want. But pine nuts, it's a really classic combination with green beans. It's kind of like peanuts, but has a lot more mild flavor and has some sweetness to it. Especially when you toast it, a lot more flavor comes out of it. And then Yorkshire pudding, if you're not familiar, it's kind of it's a British dish. And this is the batter for it. It's kind of like, it's really hard to explain, like a puffed up biscuit almost. Because what you do is you get this batter really cold, like I'm gonna put it in the fridge after this. And then you get a muffin pan and put some vegetable oil or sunflower oil in it, in each of the cups. And then you put that in the oven, let it get really hot, and then you pour this on top of the hot oil, so the cold and the hot, it puffs up and you cook it, and then it has this nice little bowl to it, and you can pour gravy into it. So this is a nice kind of biscuit or roll component to this kind of dinner meal here. And then over here, I have everything I'm going to be using for the chicken. So on the base, I have 3 garlic cloves that I cut in half, or 3 garlic heads, I should say. This is going to be the bed of the chicken, that way it doesn't burn on the bottom. And it's going to impart a lot of flavor. You'll notice I still have the skin on it. I took off the bits that were easy to take off. That way it doesn't stick too much. But this garlic is just going to melt down on the bottom. Because we're going to end up cooking this for about 2 hours almost. And then here I have the whole chicken. So I've said in other videos, when you buy the whole chicken, you do save yourself a lot of money. Because you're not having somebody cut it up for you. But we're going to use the whole chicken in this case. And then over here, I have everything I'm going to stuff into it. So I have some Fresno pepper to give it some spice, some fresh thyme leaves here. I'm going to throw the whole thing into there. And then onion and a lemon cut in half. I may not be able to fit both halves into here, but I'm going to try to. If not, I'll just do one of each. But seasoning it from the outside and the inside, it gives it a lot of aromatics and a lot of flavor to it. And then over here, I have some butter and some fresh tarragon that I chopped up. Tarragon, it's really fragrant. You see it a lot in curries and stuff. But I'm going to be making this into like a tarragon butter with salt and pepper as well. I'm going to push this under the chicken skin. That way we have it nice and juicy, it doesn't dry out, and it'll be super moist chicken. And then a last component will be the gravy. So you see all this stuff in here, the stuffing, the garlic at the bottom. I want to use that and the chicken juices to make a gravy. Might not be able to get enough, so I do have chicken broth on standby. This is only about a 4-pound chicken. But it's all going to go together really well. These are going to have this chicken, and then the green beans over here, and then the Yorkshire puddings, pour some of that gravy on it, and it'll be really good. So now I'm going to change the camera over to here, and you'll see how I'll prepare the chicken here.
Alright, so the chicken, I already pushed my fingers through the skin, that way you could slide the butter under it, so it's already loosened up. When you first get it, you do have to do that first. And you want to be careful, you don't want to push it too hard because you'll end up ripping the chicken. And the butter over here brought it down to room temperature, and I'm putting in that chopped tarragon into it. And you can roughly chop it, it doesn't have to be a fine chop or anything. And you want to use a really sharp knife, that way you don't let all of the goodness onto the cutting board. You want to still have that flavor inside of the butter. I also put some salt and pepper into it, so we're seasoning both under the skin and on the top of the skin. And this also keeps it really juicy, because we do cook it for over an hour. But it's at 350 for most of the time, so it's not too hot. It's kind of a slow roast here. You want to make sure you get it under the skin on the breast and also on the back there. And you want to try to get it into the legs and the wings just a little bit. You see there I'm using as much as I can here. And then rubbing a little bit on the top. We're also going to put olive oil on the top to brown the skin and some salt and pepper on there too. Then I'm putting in some thyme sprigs here. So the thyme, that's also going to be in the gravy too. And I got a really small lemon and onion to see if I could fit them in here. I didn't think I could, but I ended up putting it all inside of there. And also some Fresno peppers, chop that up, and it's just one of them. I diced it up in there with the seeds and everything and put that in there to give it some spice. Then here I'm just struggling to fit that second onion in there, but it doesn't quite fit, but it goes into the back. Then you put on top of the garlic heads that are cut in half there. So that'll puree under the bottom. Once it cooks over that hour, it gets really soft and you can mash it into the gravy. So salt and pepper on the skin and the olive oil.
Alright, no cooking on the stovetop just yet. I have it preheated to 400 degrees. I'm going to throw it in there for about 12 minutes. Then I'm going to lower the heat and let it cook, and then I'll go over cooking everything else. Let's go ahead and put this in the middle rack, roughly. Yeah, one-handed. You see the onion sticking out a little bit. I end up using the whole thing, but I'm trying to cover it just enough to where it doesn't burn. But if it does burn a little bit, that's fine. Alright, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and take a look. Look at that. Nice perfect color, have all the juices. You can see some of the stuffing came up, but that's fine. It gave it its flavor.
Alright, so you want to take the chicken out of the tray so it can rest a bit, and also so I can get to these juices and the stuffing inside of there for the gravy. It's super hot at this point, and it stays pretty warm, even with some stuffing left inside of it. But definitely going to use these to give flavor to the gravy. And I did end up needing to use some chicken stock because there wasn't enough juices here. It's a bit too fatty to use it just for the gravy, so I still needed some chicken broth in this case. The pans are nice and hot. I want to get about a 1/4 cup of those juices there, 1/4 cup of flour, and then it's 2 cups of broth. In this case I did 3 cups because I did a little bit extra roux here. Remember, roux is that flour and butter or fat mixture that you cook down. And the more brown you let it get, the better the flavor will be. So I let this get into a deep brown for the gravy. You see there I'm putting in some of the onions, some of that mushy garlic there, and then a little bit more butter. And we want to leave out the lemons because after a lemon's been cooked, you try to add it into something, it has a really bitter off flavor. So we don't want to use those anymore. And here got some butter and the pine nuts, and you want those to toast. And these got a little brown than I would have liked. You do want to make sure they don't burn. In this case they didn't burn, but they're really close to. So here I'm adding in some more thyme leaves into it. One thing I would recommend doing if you're adding in thyme, to tie it together. That way it's easier to take out at the end. In here I had to end up using tongs to get out all those chunky pieces there. You see there, the longer you let the roux cook, the browner it gets, that means more flavor. You want to be a deep brown before you add in the chicken stock. So now I'm putting in the green beans into the ice water. So remember, this is called blanching. And you do this to stop it from cooking and keep it from overcooking. And the way you can tell vegetables are overcooked is if the water is green. In this case the water is still clear, so they're cooked just right. Remember, we saute them a little bit with the pine nuts, so we'll do a little bit more cooking there. But you want the vegetables to still have some bite to them. And there I'm putting in the muffin pan with the vegetable oil at the bottom. It's about 1/4 inch in every cup there. And that's for about 5 minutes. You want to get that oil super hot. And then the Yorkshire pudding batter is inside the fridge. So as soon as it hits that hot oil, it kind of puffs up right away. So I'm shaking up the broth here, and you pour in about 1 cup at a time. And again, for 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of flour, salt and pepper, and then whatever you're using to flavor it. And then 2 cups of broth is the normal amount that I do. In this case I did a little bit extra roux, so I'm adding in a little bit extra broth. It came out to about 3 cups instead of 2. But you see there right away it gets really thick. And if you're worried your gravy is really thin, you just want to let it cook longer. It'll end up thickening up over time. And you never want to put raw flour into it because it'll never break down. You can only add in flour at the beginning. So now that those pine nuts are toasted, throwing in the green beans there. And make sure you don't put any ice in there, you don't want it to get too watery. Then here's some of that dried parsley. And so this is a classic combo with green beans, the pine nuts, salt and pepper, and parsley, and lemon of course. Just stir that in there, end up tossing it, it's easier. Remember, you tilt the pan down and then flick it with your wrist. And you want to do it slow, especially when you're starting to do it for the first time. So another cup of the broth in there, and then setting the timer for the Yorkshire pudding there. And then remember, you want to stir the batter before you pour it into the hot oil. So now I'm taking out all that stuff out of the gravy. Again, I'll put it in the recipe. I recommend tying all those ingredients together, that way it's easier to get out. And then if there are still some chunks in there, you can use a potato masher to mash that garlic into there. That way you don't have to take any of the bits out. And also pay attention when you put the garlic in there to not include the skin, just to make it easier on yourself. You see there, this gravy's been cooking for about 20 minutes. It's been lowered to a simmer. The longer you cook it, the more flavor it has. You can see that consistency is coming together there. And you always taste to make sure it's just right. In this case, it's seasoned really well. Right, the moment of truth. It's been 17 minutes. Let's see. Yes, perfect. This is what we want them to puff up like this. So we're good to go here. So I'm going to let this cool off a little bit and then we'll go over to plating. Alright, everything's done now. So first thing is the chicken. I got a leg quarter that I cut off here. I'm going to use that for this plate. Just kind of put that off to the side. I want lots of food here. And over here I have the Yorkshire pudding. So you can see here, the key is to let it rise and don't open the oven because then they'll fall flat. But we want it to be like this because it has a nice little bowl in it. Put some gravy in there. And if you take them out and you notice that they're still puffed up in the middle a little bit, that's fine. As they cool off, they kind of sink in the middle, so that's perfect. So I'm going to have these for my gravy. Then over here we have these nice green beans with the pine nuts. And then that lemon zest and lemon juice here. So I'm just going to kind of pile it on. So this is kind of like a Sunday roast style English dinner here. Because normally it'd be done with something like a roast beef or even a pork roast. And you can even do a roast chicken in this case. Put a little bit more, kind of split this up. I got a lot of pine nuts in that. Yeah, so this isn't a nice little elegant plate. There's a lot on it. And over here I have the gravy. So let me just mix this up a little bit. You can see there, this has the drippings from the chicken. Some thyme. I took out as much as I could. There might be a few things left in here. See here, like a thyme stick here. You want to make sure you get all that out. And then the garlic that was sitting under the chicken, it just basically pureed because it cooks along and you can just mash it into here. So this is really flavorful gravy. So I'm going to pour that right onto there. You can be generous with it. See, so you don't always have to have gravy with mashed potatoes. You can have it with something like this too. So it'll go really well with this. And over here, I have some Rouge Yellow Snow IPA. So I happen to find this at a local Lee's here. I've always been wanting to try this, and I've been letting it sit in the fridge for a little bit. So I think this would be really good with this. Because it's an IPA and has a nice fruity notes, and that'll come off with the citrus inside of the chicken and also the green beans. Just let that kind of level out here. Let me see how this tastes. This is really good. Rouge, they always have really interesting IPAs. This is another good one. Hope I can find it again. But there you have it. Absolutely stunning roast chicken with green beans and pine nuts, Yorkshire puddings, and some homemade gravy. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. That really helps me out. And also, if you're not following this account, go ahead and hit follow. And go ahead and tell your friends about it. It really helped me out get this account going. I had been posting them on my other account, Kyle, so well, but now they're all going to be on here. And thanks again for watching. I know it's been a while since I did my last video. Kind of getting the corona, kind of bummed out kind of deal, just being in quarantine all the time. But it's really nice to get back up and start making these. And this came out really good. Like this is a nice, proper English dinner. I can't wait to dig into this. And of course, the recipe will also be on sowow.xyz. So go ahead and check it out there. And you can also look through the website to see the other accounts in the SoWow family. Again, thanks so much for watching.